We all have a chronological age, marked by the calendar, but deep inside our organs and tissues, the actual biological age of our cells often tells a different story. In 2009, Harvard researchers identified marine lipid deficiencies as one of the top preventable causes of death, rivaling the mortality rates attributed to trans fats. The data revealed a stark clinical divide. An omega-3 index of 8% correlates with a 5-year increase in life expectancy when compared to a 4% baseline. This chart tracks biological age acceleration using the DNA Grimm age clock. For the average patient, the curve climbs steeply. But in controlled trials, omega-3 directly flattens this curve, proving a measurable deceleration in biological aging. Yet a paradox exists. Physicians routinely see health-conscious patients who take daily fish oil supplements, yet still fail to achieve these life-extending metrics. Gross ingestion of a supplement is no guarantee of cellular integration. Without a proper mechanism for delivery, the intervention fails before reaching the cell. For decades, medicine has relied on legacy lipid panels and plasma phospholipid tests to assess cardiovascular health. These plasma tests merely measure the circulating traffic in the bloodstream, a volatile reading easily skewed by a recent meal. Plasma on the left is volatile traffic. On the right, we isolate a red blood cell membrane. The omega-3 index measures EPA and DHA integrated here. A 120-day cell life cycle provides an objective 4-month historical record of true lipid architecture. Measuring plasma instead of the membrane leaves physicians blind to the tissue's true structural integrity and the patient's risk of sudden cardiac death. The science of marine lipids traces back to 1971, when Danish researchers Hans Olaf Bang and Jorn Dyerberg investigated the Inuit paradox, a population with low cardiovascular disease despite an exceptionally high-fat diet. In the cold water environments of Greenland, this native diet provided the original baseline for optimal human EPA and DHA levels. These populations consumed marine lipids that were naturally bound to protective organic compounds. Modern supplement manufacturing attempts to replicate this outcome by extracting and isolating the oil, stripping it away from these natural chaperones. The cardioprotective benefits discovered in the 1970s were the result of this specific native biochemical architecture. Highly refined supplements remove the very elements required to keep the oil stable. Many patients attempt to reach their omega-3 targets using plant-based sources like flax seeds and walnuts. These plants contain alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. However, ALA is not a final product. This diagram illustrates a competitive bottleneck. Both plant-based ALA and inflammatory linoleic acid, the primary omega-6 fat, compete for the same conversion enzyme. Because the modern industrialized diet contains extreme excesses of omega-6, this pathway becomes flooded. The linoleic acid physically blocks the ALA from advancing. Furthermore, this enzyme requires specific cofactors to function, specifically zinc, magnesium, and B vitamins. Alcohol, trans fats, and glucocorticoid steroids actively deplete these nutrients. Without them, the cofactors detach, causing the entire enzymatic pathway to stall. Relying purely on plant precursors in an environment saturated with omega-6 is enzymatically incapable of achieving an 8% cellular index. For optimal cellular function, the body requires a 3-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. At this target, it behaves like a fluid, flexible ocean. In contrast, the modern clinical average routinely exceeds a skewed ratio of 20-to-1. Watch the cross-section of the cell membrane. As excess omega-6 molecules pack together, they forcefully compress the flexible lipid tails until the dynamic wall hardens into a rigid, deformed block. Incoming signal molecules bounce off the hardened surface. This rigidity blunts receptors and cripples cell-to-cell communication. Essential nutrients fail to absorb, while cellular toxins become trapped inside the cell. Systemic chronic disease is the direct structural consequence of this cellular rigidity. This creates a critical question. Why can't we fix this rigidity by simply increasing our intake of standard EPA and DHA capsules? The limitation is the oil stability index. Isolated marine lipids are extremely volatile. Once inside the human digestive tract, these oils are exposed to heat and oxygen, the two primary drivers of lipid breakdown. In this diagram of the gastrointestinal tract, unprotected EPA and DHA rapidly disintegrate. They warp into jagged, unstable free radicals long before they can reach human tissue. The body's metabolic pathways correctly identify these oxidized lipids as biological waste. They are aggressively repelled at the cellular threshold and flushed away. True correction requires delivering marine oils that remain intact throughout the entire digestive process. This is achieved by tightly rebinding EPA and DHA with specific potent polyphenols derived from pre-harvest extra virgin olive oil. Watch the gastrointestinal tract again. These polyphenols act as a sacrificial antioxidant shield. They absorb the oxidative stress of digestion, allowing the marine lipids to pass safely into the bloodstream. Polyphenol binding is a non-negotiable biological prerequisite for successfully delivering omega-3s across the cellular threshold. When EPA and DHA are successfully integrated into the membrane, they serve as more than just building blocks. They produce specialized metabolites known as resolvins and protectins. These chemicals actively clear cellular waste and orchestrate the timely resolution of the inflammatory cascade. This targeted resolution is fundamentally different from the action of standard pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories, or NSAIDs. As the flowchart shows, an NSAID acts as a heavy block that slams down to shut the entire pathway off instantly. While this provides short-term pain relief, the damaged tissue remains stagnant. By silencing the signals to rebuild, the drug actively impedes the body's necessary healing cycle. Without proper resolution, the body enters a state of inflammaging, the chronic, low-level inflammation that drives genomic instability and accelerated aging. Generating resolvins is the only way to clear inflammaging without paralyzing the immune system's ability to heal and repair. The active resolution of inflammaging leads directly to the deceleration of the epigenetic clocks. Because this overhaul relies on the red blood cell life cycle, true structural correction takes a dedicated 120 days. On this risk assessment chart for sudden cardiac death, we start with a patient in the red high-risk zone with an index below 4%. After 120 days of proper intervention, as the marker crosses the 8% threshold, the risk curve plummets. This shift represents a 90% reduction in the risk of sudden cardiac death. True preventative health requires moving past volatile lipid isolates and outdated circulating blood metrics. Practical protocols must be molecularly stable, polyphenol chaperoned, and verified by rigorous cellular indexing. Achieving cellular lipid balance is the fundamental structural intervention required to actively slow biological aging and extend human life.
If you're serious about taking control of your health, this is the right place to start. To learn more, connect with us today. We'll guide you through the complete process. If you're ready to get started, simply scan the QR code provided and order your test kit directly from the official Swedish company website for India. For your safety, avoid buying from e-commerce platforms in India, as duplicate products are widely circulating. Don't compromise on what you put into your body.